So good morning, everyone, and welcome back. I am super excited about this live session because we have two dynamic female speakers who are going to blow your minds and sharing great tips and knowledge on two very crucial and critical topics for every small business owner. These are branding and sales. So it is my pleasure to introduce you all to our keynote speaker, Shelly Lazarus, former worldwide CEO and chairman of Ogilvy and Mather, and our live session leader, Lauren Bailey, founder and president of Factor 8. Shelly and Lauren, thank you so much for joining us. Cohort is super excited to have you. And I should say, I'm looking forward to take the participant seat as well and learn from you both and apply these lessons to brand and grow USAWEC. So before I pass the mic to Shelly, I want to share a quick overview of how today's session is going to be run. So Shelly will deliver her keynote for 15 minutes, followed by a Q&A. We will then have Lauren talk about sales and do a presentation for around 45 to 50 minutes. And we will have one more Q&A. So please type your questions for Shelly and Lauren or comment on anything you find interesting during the session using the chat button at the bottom of your screen. And we will get to as many questions as we can. So Shelly, welcome once again, and floor is all yours.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I'm so glad to be here for so many reasons, but especially because I love talking about brands. I mean, I've spent my whole life building brands, and I apologize because I'm a bit of a missionary on this subject. So if I seem overexcited, just sort of excuse me for that. But I have come to know that there is no more valuable asset that any organization has than its brand. It's delicate, it goes everywhere. And I hope to just spend a little time this morning fleshing that out. I'm so impressed by what you are all doing. Sugafri was good enough to share sort of what you're all about and where you're all coming from. And you are true entrepreneurs and you are founders. And that's a very profound thought, to be a founder. And it's very important to brands. And I've worked most of my career in a company that had a founder. I knew the founder. Ogilvy is this mammoth company now. David Ogilvy started this company. He was the only employee. He had a desk and he had a point of view. And he set out in a very deliberate way, a very thoughtful and deliberate way to build a company that was based on the values and the things he believed in. And you know, all great brands have points of view. Sometimes people who are, just starting up companies, doing startups, come to talk to me as if there's some right answer about what you should do with your brand, what your brand should be. And the thing is, it's all in you as a founder. You have some views about how customers should be treated, about where the value is in what you're offering, about how you should behave with partners. That is your brand. If you're just deliberate and thoughtful about it and actually articulate it, that becomes the core of your brand. I've just had a great experience recently, just to give you some sense of doing a startup with a man who worked in the financial services industry, who's worked in the financial services industry for decades. And he decided that there was a better way to do this. And he gathered around him 4 other experienced people in the financial services industry. They sat at a table and they literally said, what do we like about the experiences we've had in the biggest financial services companies in the world? And what do we hate about it? And based on that conversation at one table in a one-room office, they came up with their brand. And it was all about, again, a point of view about the way they thought things should be. I was very taken with a number of your questions because Sugafri shared those as well. And there was a lot of conversation about how you evolve, how you change, how you broaden. As you think about your brand, it has a DNA. There are certain things that are universal. And you have to think about what those are. What are the things that will never change? Even as you expand your product portfolio, even as you go to different countries, even as you sort of go beyond in terms of offering what you're offering now, what are the things that will never change? When Sam Walton started out, everything he was going to offer was going to be the lowest price that could be had. So even if Sam Walton now, even if Walmart started to build hotels or restaurants or car dealerships, or the one thing is that it was always going to be lowest price. No matter where McKinsey goes, that whoever is going to be servicing your business, whoever the consultants are going to be, they're going to be the smartest guys on this subject that you can find. And if Four Seasons put its name on on condos or on new homes or something, you knew it would be focused on customer service. This is the most important thing you need to do as you go out, is to decide, what your DNA is. Danny Meyer, when he started his first restaurant, started with a point of view that if he treated his employees well, that would be the whole secret to the restaurant having excellent customer service. And so he now has, a long list of restaurants and Shake Shack and all that. But the one thing about it, the one thing that never changes, is that he is focused on his employees. And that if you are entering the restaurant business, the place you want to work most of all would be in a Danny Meyer restaurant. So thoughtful, deliberate, write it down. Write down what you want your brand to be. Write down what you think the DNA of your brand is. You'll modify it, you'll expand it, you'll interpret it in different ways, but you'll have that as your core. So moving on to some other, this is hardly a keynote. These are some things I just wanted to share with you based on too many years of experience. But one of the things that people mistake often is that they think that building a brand is the same thing as advertising. It's not. Too many people confuse these two things. While advertising can be a very important part of a branding effort, bringing your brand to life requires so much more than advertising. And dare I say it, given where I come from, advertising might be the very last thing that you do after you've done everything else. I've often had conversations with CFOs who say, yeah, sure, I'd like to build a brand, but it's so expensive, I'm not sure it's worth it. Well, the thing is that most of what you do to build a brand, and I'll come to this in a minute, you're doing anyway. You might as well do it in a consistent, thoughtful, integrated brand building way. So some examples. Nothing tells people about what your brand is as much as who you hire. Who do you hire? Who are your people? How do you answer the phone? What do your delivery trucks look like? What is an interaction online feel like? I'll give you two examples of things that I think are not obvious, but all part of brand building. I don't know if any of you know how Google greets new employees, but so again, remember, I know the people who were in the hotel room with Sergey and Larry at the beginning, when they were just trying to figure it out, just out of Stanford. And, but there was something from the beginning that they wanted their brand to be playful. You could tell from the logo that they designed and the colors they used. Well, here's how Google greets a new employee. Most people bring them into a conference room and in an office building. Here's what Google does. It's your first day, you're sitting in your cubicle, and someone comes and delivers 8 primary colored balloons. And they stick it in your cubicle to say, first of all, welcome. This is Google. Feels like the logo. It feels like who we are. But the other important thing is it signals everybody else in your area that you've just arrived, and they all come and say hello to the place where the balloons are. Now, if IBM did that, you'd think, what is going on here? I mean, who's going to do balloons in IBM? But it's so Google-like. So by the way, that is a pre-COVID example of sort of how to greet a new employee. But I want to give you another example of other ways of building brands, especially in the time of COVID. So I have my son and daughter-in-law were living with us for a while when COVID started with their 9-month-old baby. And they started to use Dryper, which was a new startup. And the people who were starting up Dryper in the time of COVID, they were overwhelmed with the logistics and operations. Well, they didn't give you the usual. So they emailed you in a way, it sounded like your best friend was writing to you and saying, you can't imagine the trouble we had this week. And it was a friendly letter. It was, we're screwing up royally. They use words like that. We can't get it right. We're overwhelmed, but just please bear with us because we want to do the right thing. We want to build this company. And every day, my daughter got an email like this saying, the diapers are coming. We're not sure when, hang on, and the same thing that a second example during COVID was Thrive, this new company that again was just starting up, but with fresh food delivery. And they were overwhelmed too. And it was the same brand feel. It was the same sort of, please believe in us. We're trying to get it right. It was so not Amazon, that it's just, again, they probably were doing it naturally. It probably was not some sort of, strategy statement that said, this is the way we're going to behave. But their natural behavior was to sort of reach out, talk as friends, be a partner to these new mothers. And so, but you probably are going to do it naturally, but as you do it naturally, pay attention to where you go naturally, because that's probably your brand. Another point, a brand is not a product. People often use these words interchangeably, products and brands. So within every brand, there is a product, but not every product is a brand. You've got to build a brand. It doesn't happen naturally. And once you build it, the brand should serve as the backdrop for everything you do. It's an amazing organizing principle. Again, I said most of you are founders. You have this great opportunity to create this brand in your own image. And by the way, we can talk about this later. We had a lot of questions about, personal brands versus product brands versus, there are 100 ways at it. Some people build a personal brand. It's not necessary. But if you think that you are the personification of the brand and you want to, sort of use that, I recall a very early meeting I had with Bill Gates about building the Microsoft brand. And after we did our very careful strategic presentation of what we thought the Microsoft brand should be, Bill Gates actually said, I am the brand, which, okay, he believed he was, and he was, and we can talk about that later, the dangers of having one person as the brand. But again, it should be deliberate, conscious, and thoughtful. So you find the DNA, you find what will never change, and then you use it everywhere. You use it, again, just do an audit of every interaction that the outside world has with you, and see if there is consistency in your brand. How about your packaging? If you make a product, the packaging is your most important advertising in a way. Every time someone uses your product, they're reading your brand. They're feeling it. Have you ever, I'm sure many of you have had Pepperidge Farm cookies. All the brand is on that package. It is just that all the care is taken with writing the package copy, with making sure that the visuals live up to that great old style, homemade, kind of bakery product that they make. I just want to take a moment and answer the question of why brands, are so what makes them so valuable. And so here are a few thoughts. One is brands compress data better than anything in existence. So I will give you an example. Tide. What is Tide has a 55% share of detergents in the United States. The reason why, if you go out and ask people, why do they use Tide? The answer is their mothers used it. Now, how would you like to have to compete against that as a new detergent? But it's so much deeper than that. People can actually smell Tide. You say Tide to them and they can smell the way the laundry room in their childhood home smells. That's a brand. That's you talk to people about how they feel about Mercedes, and they can cite moments when they're 5 years old driving in the car with their father, and their father says, God, that's a gorgeous looking car. And it starts from there till the point where they're 40 and buy one, and so these are, but it's not accidental. This is all quite thoughtful. So a brand pulls all the attributes together, rational and emotional. You don't have to think about them. I always think what it would be like to have to stand in the aisle of a pharmacy and pick a cold medicine. If you actually had to read the functionality of each product, it's crazy. You just go to Dristan or Advil or whatever it is, just because you trust it, and that's the key, is brands more than anything, they convey trust. And what we've seen happen during the time of COVID is that there was this great return to the traditional brands. And no one knows why. Was it the comfort that they had? At the same time as you had all these new startup brands, and that was a good time for them too, because people were kind of rethinking the way they did everything. But you also had a resurgence of the traditional brands. The second thing about brands is that they're ownable. Anybody can create a credit card, but you can't create American Express. And anybody can create a phone, but you can't create an iPhone. And I'm giving you these examples of companies that have, been in existence for not that long. But it's so once you own the brand, you've basically built the greatest barrier to competition. And there are, I was thinking about the time of COVID, and you see a brand like Allbirds, the new shoes. It's just sort of anybody can make that shoe. But over a short period of time, they have built a brand around, these are the shoes that everyone in Silicon Valley, wears, the cool kids, and it's so much beyond a piece of canvas over a piece of rubber. And you've got to be thoughtful about that in all ways. So I wanted to end with two last observations. But I think two things that I'd like to share with you that I think are critical, that I think are sort of things that people overlook sometimes, especially as they're starting up new enterprises. It's critical to view the world outside in. I hope that this is, if you take nothing else away from this talk, this should be it. You have to see the world the way others see you. So your customers, your partners, your suppliers, your employees. I've so often sat on the other side of a one-way mirror in focus groups, and with the CEOs and leaders of a particular company. And the people who are using the product or service are on the other side, and they're talking about what they think about it. And you have to sort of hold the CEO back because he wants to go crashing through that mirror and grab these people by the shoulders and say, no, it's not that. That is not what I'm bringing you. But it's really important to know how you're seen. It's really important to talk to your employees about what their experience is like, what they're seeing. You have to think you're the manufacturer, but you got to talk to the users. And I think this is very often startling to CEOs to hear the way people see them and interpret them. And then the last thing I'd like to say is, and I don't want this to sound cynical, but I think it's true. It's all good things happen when you align self-interest. I've gotten to this stage of my life, to this age, when I know that this is true. What's in it for the customer? What's in it for the client? What's in it for the employee? And, very often I'm in meetings where people are sort of describing the functionality of things and why this is superior and all that, but they lose the view of why should I care? And that's a question to ask yourself. Why should I care that this does what you believe it does, that this has the value that you believe it does? And so why don't I sort of end it there? I'm anxious to take your questions. I think that this is a subject that could go on and on. I will tell you right now that what your brand does have a very close relationship to the culture that you're creating, and you're all creating cultures, either consciously or unconsciously. And this is a critical part of success for any organization. And so it just comes back again to what is it that you want the thing you are building to be? What do you want it to stand for? What do you want it to represent? What is its point of view? Because I'll stop where I started. All great brands have points of view. And I think nothing illustrates this better than this whole conversation about whether CEOs of great companies should come out even with political views, with social views, is because great brands do have points of view, they're now expected to have points of view everywhere. And that, to me, is, with all the difficulty that it entails, that to me is the greatest evidence of the power of brands. So let me stop there. I'm happy to take your questions. I can go to the chat.
I can help you with that, Shelly.
Okay, that would be great.
Perfect. And considering the time, let's just take 2 questions now. I know some of them are a mix of sales and branding. Then we can have more questions at the end. To start off with, we have Amber, who says, and ladies, just for a change, considering, we have a limited amount of time here, I'm going to ask the questions, and let's see if we can, project your video feeds at the end so that you can ask the questions directly. So for now, Amber Sab says, Shelly, when branding a service, how can your brand reflect your beliefs?
Well, again, I mean, it's no different than, it's almost easier in a way than branding a product. But, everyone says they want to be easy to do business with, and the customer is core to what they do. And I don't find that most of the time. That's a way you can, that brands give differentiation, right? So it creates expectations of, I think it was ING or the Orange Card or one of those. They said, we treat everybody the same. If you need front of line concierge service, do not come here. We don't do that. So again, I think, the examples I gave is your customer is key. The focus is on employees. I think, I've worked with some of the big 4 accounting firms, and it's very hard to find differentiation, but I think it all starts with how they think about clients and how they think about their own employees, and how they define a successful engagement. And yeah, I don't think it's hard to find. I think it's hard to find differentiation.
Thanks, Shelly. So we have one more question. It came in through nowhere, and it's from Amanda Sheridan. And she says, I heard how important it is to put a face to the brand. But as my company grows, should I separate my company brand from my personal brand? Do I need a personal brand? I would like to eventually use my experience with carving out a new industry to empower others in the future. So that's a question, but I'll pause there and see if she would like to add anything to it. Amanda, if you're hearing us and if you'd like to add anything to it.
Yeah, I think you kind of answered some of those questions, saying, you can't separate it at the start. I think my biggest thing is I do have such a personal relationship with all of my partners as I've grown this business. And I feel like when I'm going to look into expanding this and scaling into new cities, potentially, I can't have that one-on-one relationship where I am the one to call whenever there's a problem. So how do I go about, keeping that personal brand that everyone has grown to trust, but being able to build it into, expanding into new places?
Well, it's a great question. It comes up all the time. It's, the question is, how do you institutionalize what your personal beliefs and service delivery is and all that? And I think, this is, I watched David Ogilvy do it. I mean, he was the genius. He was the advertising genius. And by the way, it goes on all the time. I mean, David Droga 5, they became so big over 10 years that they were bought by Accenture. So the thing is to sort of be, I think, thoughtful about what it is that you believe you deliver, and make that the promise of the institution that comes from you, and then insist that everyone you hire, everyone who works is in the different cities, where they have to embrace that point of view about where the value lies. And actually, if they don't, the most important thing in a professional services firm, I don't know what your particular firm is, but nothing is as important as the people. If the people don't embody the brand, then they need to go. And so I think that's the way to do it. But you actually have to, I would actually sit down and say, these are the things that I believe. These are the foundations of the company that I started. This is what the promise we make to our different constituencies. And this is what everybody who is part of this company needs to embrace. And I think that's the way you institutionalize it. I mean, eventually at some point, because the leader passes on, eventually it gets institutionalized or not in some way, just because of just with time. But I just think it's so smart to do it right at the start, and to know what it is that defines the company that you founded.
Thank you. That helps a lot. I appreciate your feedback.
Thank you so much, Shelly. I think with that said, we have some more questions coming in through the chat. Someone says happy belated birthday, Shelly. So
September 1st. I am really impressed. I'm really impressed with that. I'm also thank you for the insight on all birds. I had no idea that it had a special material, but I really like them.
They're awesome.
Perfect. And I think with that, we should move on to Lauren's presentation. And Shelly, we can take more questions at the end. There are like a lot of them coming up.
Happy to.
And I will pull them all for you at the very end in the next Q&A segment. Lauren, over to you.
Thank you very much. Hello, ladies. I'm really excited to join you. It's been so fun watching your questions and your faces during this. I am a women business owner myself, so I can't wait to dig in with you. I'm going to ask for a favor. I am taking a risk today, just like we're all used to doing together. And I'm learning how to do this virtual presentation in a standing mode. Now, half of you are wondering what the hell my screen says right now. So I'm going to ask for your help and we'll see if it'll work, okay? There's two ways to make my screen the biggest on your screen in Zoom. One of them is to go to the top right where it says view and switch it to speaker view. You'll still see a small gallery. Your other option is to go to the top right of my picture, hit the three dots and say pin. Want to give that a shot? I'm going to, all right, I've got some thumbs up as we're going here. I'm going to dive in because we're a little bit behind schedule. And if we're having trouble through this, so guys, just come off of mute and tell me to sit my butt down. But I've done my best to make my slides really, really big going forward from here, okay? So we shouldn't have a problem. I'll start with an introduction. My name is Lauren Bailey. My friends call me LB. I have 3 brands. Factor 8 is my first baby, who's 13 years old, and we're all about teaching tactical selling and sales management skills. You see, I grew up in sales. I've been surrounded by salespeople. I was a salesperson, a sales manager, a sales leader. I went and built sales training departments, and then eventually my own company teaching sales skills. Sort of like being raised by a pack of wolves, by the way. So I speak sales fluently. But the truth is, I haven't always loved selling, especially as an entrepreneur. Selling myself and my services has been the hardest sale of my life. Give me a yes or no if you agree with that in the chat for me. Is it harder to sell yourself than anything else? Okay, yeah, I thought I might see that. All right, cool. Listen, I think sales and marketing is where I've seen most entrepreneurs fail. We created our product or our service because we love it and we're great at it and we're passionate about it, but it don't mean we know how to sell it, right? So we're going to talk today about the difference between sales and marketing. I'm going to try to reframe sales a little bit because a lot of you guys in your comments said it feels icky, and I get it. My goal is that you're leaving with some tactical tips to help you sell yourself, your services, and your products better. And if we really hit it, then some confidence in doing that as well. So let's level set. What I have behind me is a whole bunch of billboards. Is this sales or is this marketing? Chat it in for me. Get used to keeping that chat hot, okay? Is this sales or is this marketing? Oh yeah, marketing, marketing, marketing. Exactly, right? This is awareness building, and marketing owns this. So what gets us from this to this? Look how happy she is, holding her awesome product in her hot little hands. This is gonna be so good. She's so happy. I want you to think about your last major purchase. Let's call it over $500. Might have been for your business, might have been for yourself, might have been for your kids. Okay, which influenced you more, sales or marketing? Okay, we're going to chat that one in. Marketing, building the awareness. If you bought it online and never talked to a person, the answer is marketing. If you went into a store, if you called someone, if you met with someone, if you were even chatting to get questions answered before buying it, the answer is probably sales. Interesting. Interesting. Okay, I love seeing these come in. I'm going to talk a little bit about the buyer's journey. You're going to see about 7 different funnels on our coming slides. Salespeople love sales funnels. Now, this one is a sales and marketing funnel. Don't sweat it if you can't read everything on the slide, okay? But we start out at the top with awareness, right? Shelly will probably tell us it takes 7 to 13 touches to go from awareness all the way into purchase. In fact, we might not even remember those early touches, right? It's like you've never heard of something before, and then you actually start thinking about buying a silver Audi, and then you see them everywhere on the roads. By the way, small known fact, that's called the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon or frequency illusion. You can impress your friends. We want that for all of our brands, right? We want more and more and more awareness. Now, this slide is also showing you that in the old buyer's experience, marketing stopped about halfway through and sales took over. Thank you, Internet. Marketing was the #1 answer from all of you. Marketing may go all the way down to the very bottom of the funnel. And in fact, thank you, Amazon, it may go all the way. You may never interact with sales. Sales used to take over when we were considering a product. It was time to get more information. It was time to ask questions. It was time to get help. But now we self-serve that data, don't we? In fact, Amazon's replaced sellers with not just data, but ratings, recommendations, social proof. Isn't that great? They make it fun to hit yes. They've taught us that maybe we don't even need salespeople. So, where are you? Will your customers take themselves all the way down the funnel and you never have to sell? Don't we wish? Let's make that a smarter decision using the product or service lifecycle. Most of you have seen this before, but it truly shapes your sales and marketing strategy. We're going to look at a product, let's say. Type one in for me, a product that is just starting to come to market, right? It's in the development or intro stage of this life cycle. It's something rather new. Could be a product, could be a service. Can anybody think of one? It might be one of yours. Now, as you're chatting that in, I'm going to walk you through the rest of this slide. We go from development and introduction into the market to the growth stage to maturity and saturation at the top of the funnel, or the top of the curve, if you will. That means it's everywhere. I see it everywhere. It's a commodity now. And then products will start to decline if we don't keep innovating. So I see one answer is Clubhouse. And since I only see one answer, I'm going to give you some examples to make sure you guys are with me. An example, here we go. Here's some more coming in. Ravon, I don't even know either one of those. So that tells me you're spot on. That is brand new in development. When we start to hear about it and see it everywhere, we're in this growth coming up to maturity. What about CBD? 5 years ago, if I told you to go get some CBD for your headache, you'd have thought I was a stoner, okay? But now we see CBD stores more and more and more. Now, does everybody you know use CBD? No, we're not at saturation and maturity. We're somewhere probably in this intro phase. Does that make sense? All right, something that might be way up in maturity, possibly even decline. Think of something you have on auto ship, auto purchase, or subscribe and save on Amazon. Something you don't even think about. Tide, yeah, detergent. Mostly we're just trying to drive costs out at this stage because there's so much competition. So where your product or service is in the life cycle depends on what you need. So let's build this out a little bit and show you some examples. When we're early stages, what we need is some face-to-face help. Your product seems complex. It seems weird and scary, and I need somebody to educate me and walk me through buying it. As I get into the growth and maturity, the right sales strategy is about speed. And this is where most people have gone to virtual or inside sales. Now, I know a couple of you had a question about building out your sales force, and this is meant to help you pick who they are. As we get into saturation and decline, that's where people go to e-commerce sales. Why? Because you don't need somebody to educate you on how detergent works, right? What you need is to drive all the cost out of selling your detergent and find ways to sell it quickly as possible. If I'm going to translate that to the funnel, we want the buyer's journey and marketing to come all the way down without ever having to talk to a salesperson. Field sales, face-to-face, it might mean brick and mortar, walking into a store to look at it, touch it, feel it, and ask questions. It could mean face-to-face, right? So that's what carrying a bag means in a sales force, getting on a plane and visiting clients. All right, well, let's look at another interesting example of somebody who has skipped right through this. Cars. All right, is there anything that interesting? Cars aren't new, right? This isn't the 1940s. They're mature. They probably won't ever go into decline, but Carvana found a way to skip right through that funnel, didn't they? Never having to talk to a car salesman again, that's a win. They, with data and changing the experience, let you buy a car online or in a vending machine. Talk about disrupting. OfferPad or Homey is another one. Could you imagine buying or selling a house online? I'll tell you something, that's exactly the feeling that we had 20 years ago when we talked about selling computers or software over the phones. That was my job for SAP. I traveled the world launching inside sales centers so that we could sell million-dollar software packages virtually. And people thought I was crazy. You can't sell computers over, you can't sell software over the phone. You can't sell cars in a vending machine. I give you this to say, is there a way that you could skip further down the funnel? That's important, especially if you're selling B2C versus B2B. Quick definition, business to consumer, business to business. If individuals buy your products, B2C. Now here's the bad news. B2B and B2C sales typically take the same amount of effort. B2B sales close faster at higher dollar amounts. If you have an option to sell to companies instead of consumers, I will send you my home address so you can get me a thank you card in 10 years. You will spend inordinate amounts of time selling to and serving individual consumers, and they will close less often. Automate consumers if you can. Self-serve. Focus on larger business with B2B. Okay, let's save some time. All right, now I'm done helping you avoid sales. Let's reframe it and see if we can't embrace it a little bit. Here's this funnel again. This one's from a buyer's point of view. It starts at the top with problem recognition. Ruh-roh, something's going on. Now I'm going to do some information search, some evaluation. I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to purchase it, and then I'm going to see how I feel about it. Okay, that's the buying funnel. I want you to think of sales as helping. Okay, this is where we help them get serious and shift into buying mode. Remember, they have a problem and they'd like to look like that happy woman with her box. Okay, sales helps them get there. When we talk to a salesperson, we shift out of information search and into evaluation of alternatives. And when we do that, we're one step closer to getting what we want and need and getting out of analysis paralysis. Does that make sense, everybody? I'm going to tell you a quick story about the power of sales next. 3 years ago, I started my third brand and second company, Girls Club. Girls Club's mission is to help more women get into sales leadership positions. Couldn't be more passionate about this. I was called to do it. I could not do it, okay? What I really needed was a second company, right? So when we first announced it, we made it free to any individual seller who wanted to get into management. I got a landing page up with my paltry marketing resources. I had about 10,000 hits on the landing page, right? At this top of funnel. At the end, I got 5 people. That's a really crappy conversion rate. All right, year 2, I came in and added more data, more self-service. There was a landing page, there was a download, there were information sessions, and I was capturing their information while they were going through these. But let me tell you something, I was not getting more people at the bottom. So I added a layer of sales, okay? And our salespeople called the women who came to the information session, who did a download, anybody's number we captured, we called. And we sold. Now, what did that look like? A salesperson's job is to work one-on-one with someone and help them evaluate the alternatives. It was a 30-minute conversation with these women about why they were looking, what's drawing them into management and leadership, what's holding them back. For some people, we provided more data. Oh, let me help you understand what's in the classes. Some people needed social proof. Some people needed a story. Most of them just needed some reassurance and a boost. And we went from about a 0.3 close rate to a 40% close rate. That's why sales is critical. People want it, they need to talk about it. And if you don't have the Amazon bucks to provide the data all the way down the funnel, and And especially if your product or service is early in the product life cycle, you're going to need to add some sales to that. And I get it, for most of us at startup, that's me, right? I'm also marketing, and I'm also operations and finance and collections. I get it, but don't avoid it, because you can close 200 times more than if you don't speak with them. There's another reason that sales is critical. Time to chat again. What % of customer loyalty is dependent on their experience with salespeople? What keeps them coming back? What % is about the seller versus the product or the price or the service? Well, you guys are just stealing my thunder. Look at all these high numbers. The answer is 53%. Here's why this is interesting. My experience with a seller is more important to my loyalty than your product or service itself. The corporate executive board did this study, by the way. It's also more important than the price of your product or service. Thinking about raising your price point? Listen to that. But get this. My experience with your seller is more important than your product and your price combined. It's literally the #1 thing that keeps me coming back. If they like you, they will come back. So how do we build our confidence in selling so they do? Because early doors, this is true, right? When selling you right now makes a difference on whether or not I can pay my bills. Oh, I'm sorry, you guys, my entire system is shut down behind me. Here we go. We're going to open it back up though, and we'll get it working. Let me pause while I do that. Microsoft just kind of died. And instead of trying to go on while we do it, I'm going to take a 10-second pause, and it's a good chance for you guys to write in any questions that you have. Go chat in any questions that you might have.
Lauren, while you're doing that, I have to say that's a great example of a great brand.
Right?
Right.
That was intentional. The part of the, I was like,
You're
oh, that's
like,
a
hey,
great example.
It's beer
I
time.
thought it was an example. Find your beach.
It's just a beer, right? Until it became the Corona Beach, right?
And that's what did it for me. It was find your beach. It was like my happy place. Right. And I see that, it just makes me feel relaxed. Probably not the best thing to have on your desktop when presenting beer, right? But there you go. That's what it is. Are we all back together again?
Yes.
We are.
Good. I'm going to reopen my chats just so I can keep tabs on everybody. And move this. I'm 5 seconds away. Thank you so much for your patience with the pause. I saw a little background thing of Microsoft Outlook is restarting, and I thought, uh-oh, we're in trouble here. And yes, we were. All right. Good. I will tell you that early stages, in my first couple years, I was desperate to make a sale. Hopefully none of you have felt that way, right? But when it makes a difference between keeping your doors open or closed, hiring somebody, making rent, whatever it is, people can feel that. And folks, sales is a confidence sport. So until you get there, I invite you to fake it till you make it. You don't need this sale. You got a line of people out your door. You have customers coming out your ears. You probably have to turn some away. You're in high demand right now. I mean, after this, you're interviewing for more staff. You're going to have to cut this interaction short. You're just too busy and too important. People feel it. Okay. I'm not saying that needs to be your brand, but it's certainly better than smelling the desperation. All right. Now, how do we get here for real? Let's focus on why you started this business. Let's focus on the product that you love, the service that you love, right? What made you might not be a confident seller, but you can be a super confident user, right? In fact, the best thing you can do, this is now my second favorite marketing guru, is Seth Godin. And he says, let your freak flag, fly. This is what Shelly was talking about. Your brand is your passion. Your brand is what makes you weird and different. I saw questions coming in saying, should I just own the fact that I'm a Black woman who wants to change the industry? And my answer to you, dear, is hell yes. I spent so much time feeling fear about being good enough when I started Factor 8 that I was scared to death to ask the questions about what made me awesome, what made me different, what made me weird, what attracted people to me. In fact, when I got feedback about, Lauren, I will come to you to do anything, right? I shoved it away because then I thought I'll never be able to grow my company. It's all about me. I didn't want that. I saw some of you had those questions as well. As I've grown my confidence as a business owner and just as a human being, I've learned that what makes me different is that I don't hide the fact I drink beer. Every once in a while, I cuss a little bit. Well, to be honest, a lot, but I'm trying to keep it to a little bit right here. I have an intolerance for BS. I will always tell you the truth. Your authenticity, your transparency, your weirdness will draw people to you. So ladies, be the small business. Don't pretend you're massive. Tell your startup story. Tell the story about why you love this service and why you started it and what's been challenging. It's exactly like the diaper story that Shelly told, right? If you started your business to avoid your children, use that. If you quit corporate America because you hated your boss, share it. It is the fastest way to build trust and rapport. We're going to talk more about that in a little bit, okay? Now, sales process. We're going to dive into some skills. Whether your sales process looks like a cycle or it looks like a funnel, it doesn't matter. It's starting with some contact and ending with not just one sale, but loyalty sales. I've seen hundreds of sales processes, worked with thousands of sellers, and this is the number one mistake, the premature pitch. Hi, my name's Lauren. I think you want to buy some training services. Let me tell you all about why it's the best service in the entire world, blah, 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 blah. That's smelling the desperation. How do we avoid it? By using our number one tool, sales questions. Okay? We talked a second about trust, and this is important. A pitch ends the conversation and lowers trust. Questions start a conversation and build trust. So why is trust important? Chat it up, ladies. What percentage of people trust salespeople, according to a HubSpot study? 5, 12, 0, 18. Yeah, 0, 5. Okay. It is pretty dismal. 3%. Okay. Now, the good news is it's still 1.5 above politicians. Here's why this is important. Naturally, we mistrust salespeople. That means on the trust scale, we're starting way down here at the bottom. Your job is to come up here as quickly as possible in your first interaction. And of course, your repeat buyers are going to be unconditional trust long-term. Your rapport building, your authenticity, your sharing, people feeling like they know you and your brand, that's what raises the trust. Is that making sense? Once we do that, now what? Well, we use questions to find the gap. I'm cold, I want to be warmer. I have 2,000 square feet, I want double. What's the gap that brings people to your product or service? Let's look at an example. I have a magic weight loss pill. Woo, woo, woo. Okay, it's going to take you from this to this. Well, there's a right way and a wrong way to begin the sales conversation. My goal is to build trust, to ask questions to find the gap, but I need to meet them where they are and be gentle with this. So I see you're fat. Probably not a great way to start, right? Let me tell you all the way my service works. Pitching features will not make this sale. I don't care if you Garcinia Cambogia, authentic Hollywood grapefruits, right? It doesn't matter what's in it. It doesn't even matter how it works. What matters to the person buying this product? the end result. It's how it feels. And that's called a benefit, okay? Good, better, best, features, functions, benefits. What's included, how it works, what I get out of it is the benefit. My goal is that you quit speaking in features and functions and start speaking in benefits. That was your pre-work. I'm here to make it a little better. Let me start with an example. And to do that, we're going to go back to the future. Here we go. The feature is the flux capacitor. This is what makes it work. How does the flux capacitor work? It bends the time continuum. What's the benefit of that? Well, I get to spend more time with my loved ones that I lost. Maybe the benefit is I get to win money in the lottery and live a rich lifestyle. But it's the second biggest mistake is pitching features and functions instead of asking enough questions to speak in benefits. It's so commonly done that we've coined a term around it. It's called SWIFT. SWIFT stands for, so what's in it for them? Not with them, what's in it for me? So what's in it for them? And we've learned that almost every person and benefit in the world comes down to 6 major categories. And by the way, I've done this training around the globe and we've never added another category. About 5 years ago, I added number 6. Anything that you have down as a benefit should bubble down to time, saves me time. Money, helps me earn more. Ease, makes my life easier or better. Reputation, that's about looking good. Or risk, it's usually about avoiding risk. Shelly, you mentioned IBM earlier, and I know that's a brand we all know. Does anybody else old enough to remember the ad campaign that said, nobody ever got in trouble for buying IBM? Yeah, that's about avoiding risk. Maybe even looking good to your boss. What about my soon-to-be skinny girl? Where is she at? Well, she's probably not saving time or money. Those are always the top 2. Hers is about looking good, right? Is it making her life better, maybe? Somewhere in the ease, but a lot in the reputation and looking good. Here's mine at factor 8. My features are that we teach really tactical skills versus BS theory. How does that work? Well, it means that your sales reps can immediately apply new skills. That means they get used. But what's the benefit? Revenue goes up. So you can test your homework by making sure that your benefits relate to one of those 6. So if you can do it by memory, everybody. Time, money, ease or quality of life, reputation, risk. Oh, I forgot one. I always forget one and it's a different one. It's like the dwarfs. All right. Anybody who remembers?
It was power, right?
Power. There it is. Control. Thanks, Heidi. Loving you. Appreciate it. Okay. My SWIFT is I related it. Okay. So take a look at your pre-work and use those benefits to cheat. All right, guys. I'm going to give you one last tip, and this is about doing your homework. Okay. We're going to have to cut off our last section around closing, but I will send the slides. Your homework is to now build on your pre-work. You've thought about the features and functions and benefits of your product or service. But now we're going to use those benefits, the ideal customer situation, to create your sales questions, your number 1 tool. Okay? Now, the benefits for our sweet, sweet, skinny girl were that she wants to feel great. She wants to feel desirable. She wants to be envied or admired. So instead of talking about your ideal customer profile, which we get a lot in marketing, I want you to think not just about the who, but their situation, the ICS, the ideal customer situation who wants your products or services. Well, I'm going to be honest, mostly I'm going to sell this to women, but it could be anybody who's overweight. Maybe it's somebody who's feeling down, or somebody who's got a big event like a reunion coming up, or somebody who's getting into a new relationship. Oh, did I drop some weight when I met my now husband? Okay, so once you know what that situation is, you start to craft your questions. So your questions aren't just about are you male or female, right? And how much do you weigh, fatso? Your questions are about like, why now? And how would it feel? And when was the time you loved the way you looked? Anyone special? Anything new coming up? Okay. We're asking questions to uncover potential benefits and the ideal customer situation. These are power questions. You're going to need some basic questions too about the gap, right? Whatever your product or service is. But these ideal customer situation questions will focus on your benefits and be powerful questions that you'll find helps them say yes afterwards. So in summary here, we want to show our passion. We want to connect with people. We want to ask questions, right? And share the benefits of the desired state. Of course, next we have to close, but I am going to end it there in the interest of time. Happy to send the slides afterwards.
Lauren, I just want to, clear something on the timing. We do have 30 more minutes in this session, so you can.
That's great.
So you can continue with the rest of the slides for 10 more minutes, and then we can take the Q&A.
That's good, because so many of you were asking about closing. Are we okay, you guys? Is that good? All right. Yeah. I'm going to go through closing, and then we'll do questions. I'm seeing head nods. All right, fantastic. Apologies on my calendar it was saying that we're done. Yay! All right, good. So I'm so much less stressed now. Thanks, Jenny. I appreciate it. All right, time for another chat question. What percentage of sellers don't close? Here's a tip. It's the #1 reason sales don't close, that we don't ask. Well, y'all are right that it's super high. The answer is 64%. 64% of salespeople don't ask for the sale. Well, if we don't ask for the sale and they really want it, won't they buy it anyway? What percentage of customers will close themselves? What percentage of customers will close themselves? I'm saying everything from 1 to 22 so far, and you guys have nailed it. It's 10%. We've all been there, right? I currently have Wayfair up right now with 7 different standing desks. I've been around this axle 4 times now. If Wayfair had a magical way to call me and say, what are you thinking about? And what are your questions? And I could walk through, I'm not sure if I want the grommets here or there, which one's more stable. And they could give me some data and make me feel better about it. I'd be so freaking happy to get it done and shipped to me, okay? They won't close themselves. That's a big deal, y'all, right? It's the #1 request I get in sales training. So closing is scary. Let's just be honest for a second. And we're going to reframe it. Think of it this way. When you get to your cafe or your Starbucks or whatever it is in the world, do you walk up and start to order? No, you wait to be asked. Closing is asking if they're ready to order, right? Great selling is asking if she's already had breakfast yet and then recommending the killer muffin that goes with it. Okay, think about restaurant experiences for a second. Are you ready? Or is that all? That's not selling. It is still closing, right? It's the bare minimum. Do you want fries with that? No, come on, that's lazy selling. Ooh, hot and crispy fries are great with that. Can I get you a medium or is it a large kind of day? Now that's a confident seller. That's somebody who's making a connection, okay? We want to offer them an opportunity to get out of this buying funnel. Remember, selling is helping. Closing gets them to the next stage, from information search and evaluation to a purchase decision, and it gets them closer to that happy, smiling face. So the hardest part about closing is doing it. I've been teaching this for 20 years. The hardest part is making yourself open your mouth and letting the words come out, okay? So my recommendation to you is that you find one go-to closing statement or question, and you repeat it so often that your partner tells you you're talking about it in your sleep, okay? When you don't hear somebody and you turn to be like, oh, what? Instead, your closing statement's going to come out. When you're driving, I want you to ask your closing question over and over and over. When you're looking in the mirror every morning doing your hair, you're giving your closing. You can build muscle memory around sales questions and pitches and closes as easily as you do around sports. Your brain does not know the difference between practice and the execution time, and it will fall out of your mouth sooner. Now, what could be your go-to close? I have 5. On the next few slides, I'm going to give you exact closing phrases and questions and statements that you can use. Okay? Pick one you like, write it down, and make it your lover. Here we go. The first thing you can do is a closing question. Hey, did we solve the problem? Does this meet the need? This seems like a good fit. What do you think? Are you ready to move forward? I love closing questions. To me, they feel a little bit less aggressive and align with, are you ready to order? All right. Our next category are assumptions. This is a confident builder, right? Hey, well, let's get this nailed down and we'll start this week. Or what's the next step in the procurement process? Or when do you want to take delivery? So assumption can be a question or a statement. But if somebody's talked to you for 10 minutes about your stationery, I just saw your example, so I hope you don't feel like I'm picking on you, but I think it's awesome, right? Somebody's been asking about it. You just move straight to this and say, great, when do you want to take delivery? Or how many boxes are you looking for? Okay, we're assuming you're moving forward. It helps them tip over the edge and move down the funnel. The which pitch is fun as well. Which solution's better for you, A or B? Which stationery design do you like better, this one or that one? Which of these is a better match for your budget? All of these are which pitches, but also helping phrases and questions, aren't they? I want to fit within your budget. I want to help you get the right one. Which one do you like best? I'm interested. It's not buy my product right now. Feels fine, and yet you're still closing. I love the which pitch. The next one is called timeline. Everybody's in a hurry, and you can use that. An example is working backwards from your January 1 goal. That means we'll probably need to ink the contract by next week. Okay, if we get started today, we can be live by your deadline next week. You mentioned you really want the stationery in time for Christmas. You're going to want to get your order in by the end of next week. Can I place it for you now? All right, the add-on is another way that we can close, and it feels like a value add. Hey, if we sign by Friday, I can throw in the live training. If we can't commit today, I'll take 10% off. Okay, it's giving them that deal to get over the line. Good. You'll see all of these examples in the slides as well. Your goal is to pick one and make it your very, very, very best friend. All right, let's have some fun with questions. I'll pull my slides down and we'll dig in. I know you'll have questions for Shelly as well.
Yep. Thank you so much, Lauren. As you can see the chat, people love your slides and they want to have a copy of it. So yes, as last time, we would upload a copy of this recording as well as the slides on your Knowword after this session. So you will have it. So let's get started with some questions which came through Knowword. And with that, I have Sanyukta Bide, who has a question. It's a mix of how do I build a brand and sell a product, especially in the earlier stages of your company or a startup. So Sanyukta, why don't you introduce yourself and ask that question to both Shelly and Lauren.
All right. Thank you, Sugatri. And this was so amazing. So thank you so much, Shelly and Lauren. This was just amazing. So I'm the founder, CTO, CEO, solo founder of Mivera. So Mivera is a software platform that helps identify your aging parents' day-to-day needs and connects them to the best person for the task. And those people can be friends, neighbors, volunteers, or paid products and services. And we're different because we're using the power of artificial intelligence to optimize for social connections and caregiver stress. So just to give you some background of where I'm coming from. So I'm still in the development phase for this software product. And I'm trying to figure out what should be in the minimum viable product. So what I'm doing is I'm launching these pilots. I'm trying to recruit older adults and their family members to test and feedback to see if this feature was helpful. And I want to attract people to test it out. And but I'm struggling that I might erode trust if I make big claims. Because as you know, for software, the initial version is always like, it's the minimum viable product. It's not this big glamorous thing. So how do I build brand and how do I sell this product even before it is built without eroding that trust?
Like, I'm going to jump in first on that one, and because we addressed some of it right away here, and it'll align with your homework. Okay, what you're saying is you really don't want to go out there and go crazy talking about everything that your service does, because it doesn't do it all yet. So that's wonderful. It's preventing you from selling with features and functions. All right. What I want you to talk about instead is aligning to the problems people are experiencing. All right. It's about this current customer situation, and it's about the payoff and the benefits at the end. Right. I feel my current state is I'm frustrated. I'm nervous. I'm scared. I'm at my wit's end. I'm fed up with all the information. Right. My desired state is I have less guilt about shoving mom into a home, and I know she's taken good care of, and right, it's off my plate, and walk through those benefits. And that's what you talk about. Shelly, I'm sure you can make that better.
No, Lauren, I was going to say the exact same thing. I mean, this to me starts with the benefit to the potential customer. And it's such an emotional subject that it seems that if you start with the recipient of the value, and figure out what that person actually needs, you can add to it along the way. But if you can position it as the basic satisfaction of the very difficult state that these people find themselves in, that is the heart of the brand. And it seems to me that it will always be. I mean, I'm jumping the gun, that you're going to be a very emotional brand. You're going to be an intimate brand. You understand there's a lot of empathy in what you're saying. And so you just sort of take those pieces, and I could feel where you're going.
All right. I want to jump in for one last idea here, is that I'm hearing a confidence issue. Did you guys hear that too? So I want you to know that for the first 11 of my 13 years at Factor 8, I focused on the product and the service. And I didn't even have a sales and marketing department. All of my business was referral business, right? We're a product company. Well, now any Yahoo with a cell phone and an internet connection is a freaking thought leader. All right. And I noticed that everybody else had a better sales and marketing engine, right? They were going crazy about these amazing results they got. And when I looked at the product, I was like, meh. Well, you know what? I needed to change. I was underselling myself. So go for it. All right. You know what your vision is. Sell big now. Don't be afraid of it. If you're not losing 1 or 2 customers when you're in development phase, right, then you've waited too long to launch your product and you haven't made big enough claims. I always felt like everybody's noise and excitement was about anywhere from 20 to 50% too much hype than what their product act. And people are used to it. It's normal. Okay. Especially with software. They say, don't wait for the A. You launch it when it's a C or you've missed the boat. You need that feedback. And if it becomes a trend that people are saying, you sold me this and I felt like I got this, then you come back and tell me, I will be shocked.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Great questions, Anita. Next, we move on to a question from Maria. Maria, can you come off mute and ask your question to our session leaders?
Yes. Hi, let me actually try to switch my view because I can only see myself. Hi, Lauren. I have a leadership question. My name's Maria. As a strength and conditioning coach, I noticed so many gaps in education and development. So I created a company where I teach athletes how to manage stress, de-escalate conflicts, increase performance. in strength and conditioning. I worked with football players and football coaches, and my current job, I'm the only female in our outside sales force. And I haven't had any problems in the athletics world, but with my sales job, I have experienced some resistance from my coworkers, not my customers, but my coworkers. So I'm wondering if you can share how you've had to overcome just conflicts at work to build trust and develop better relationships.
Maria, what I hear you saying is you're the only skirt at the table and you're feeling like people are resistant to you because you're a woman in the male sales world in sports and athletics. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah, specifically in the sales world.
Yeah, the athletes are great. No big deal. Yeah. Sales has been a male-dominated sport for many, many years. I was always the only woman as I came up. And obviously that encouraged me or inspired me to start Girls Club one day, right? Because we need to build our own girls club because sometimes there's only one of us in the department or the company. So we have to go across companies to get there. It's a really loaded question. I could talk to you about them feeling threatened. I could talk to you about, lacks of diversity and oppression for days, but I don't think we want to go down that road. I'm going to try to go tactical instead, right? My advice is, number one, don't take it personally. We had a really neat session every year in Girls Club, and it's called the Unintentional Boys Club. And I brought on male leaders who were literally my arch nemesis in my past corporate life. And they copped to building boys clubs and then talked about how it happened, why it happened, did their best to own it, sort of, right? And here was the summary that we got from them. Hey, you know what? I was young, I was building a department, and I just needed great sellers, so I used my own network. And it just so happens that my own network are 30-year-old white men. So I didn't intentionally, right? Or we get this a lot too. I would love to have more women, or I would love to have more African Americans. They just don't apply. So, right, I'm absolved from the issue. Maria, they're not intentionally resisting or leaving you out. They've just all been buddies for a really long time, and you're new and you're different. And for some of them, you absolutely are a little bit threatening. And a lot of guys don't know how to work with us, right? They admitted to us in this session that they treat the women on their team a little bit differently. And the number one reason for that was because they've all had the experience of making their mother, wife, or sister cry, and they never, ever, ever want to experience that again. And so we train them as the opposite. Don't treat us like your mother, right? Or your daughter. We want to be treated like your sister, right? I can give you a hard time, just like you give me a hard time. Make it equal, make it fair, but it's uncomfortable. So absolutely, there's probably some real jerks in there that are doing it on purpose, but let's give them the benefit of doubt that they aren't, and stay above the fray. Find your own group. All right? Because listen, I chased that for years. I was raised by the pack of wolves. Like I said, I wore a pantsuit until I was like 35. Okay. Embrace the fact that you're a woman. Find other women in sales. Take the high road and just enjoy waving on your way up, right? When you're the one winning all the awards, because although women are a much smaller percentage of the population in sales, they make quota more often than men. They perform higher more often than men. If there's 3 women on the sales team, you will find at least 2 of those 3 in the top 5 every single time. Know that that's your future. I hope that was helpful.
Yes, thank you.
I would make 2 points. The first is I was told early on in my career, if you can't be brilliant, at least be memorable. When you're a woman, you are indeed memorable. And then the other thing that I learned directly was when I was working on Ford was they did a survey at one point when there were not very many women selling cars in dealerships. And what evolved was that actually everyone would rather buy a car from a woman than a man because they trust them more. So the original thing was women would trust women more. Not true. Everybody trusts women more in selling. So use what you got and never stop being yourself.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maria. So the next one we have, I'm going to read out this question. Shelly, maybe you can lead us off with this. It looks like it's in your alley. And Lauren, you can add to it. So the question says, how can you go about serving a product to your customers when they are not looking forward to a higher quality product at a competitive price? Rather, they are comfortable staying with what they know and use for many years. How would you build a brand so that you can go about making them change their habits and buy from you? So
Well,
I guess a mix of brand and sales.
Right.
So Shelly,
Well, I don't think any of us is ever perfectly satisfied. I mean, I assume there are some people who think it's just perfect. I can't find anything better than this. But I think you're asking the right question, because you have to figure out what it is about this product that justifies the price. I mean, you know, is it better customer service? Is it a feeling that you're part of, you know, a club that is you'd rather be part of? I mean, if you think, I worked on American Express for years. If you think about the functionality of an American Express card, it is exactly the same as the cards that are free. So why are people paying minimum $75 for something they can get for free? Well, the primary reason is actually they feel they're part of a different club when they have, you know, when they're using that particular product. So there are lots of ways to get there, but you got to get there. I mean, you can't just say this is better, because that's not going to fly. You've got to find, you know, something that makes that you know, gives people some satisfaction. Lauren, I was going to add, I have a creative partner who I work with for years who says all great advertising is only about three things: fear, greed, and love. So I would give you have six, but these are more basic. So I would go back to that. But you do have to find the thing that will make a client feel that they're getting something that is worthy of a higher price. I would make one other point in branding. Pricing is actually part of branding. Consumers have expectations. People have expectations of what something will cost. I could give you a very specific example. Dove tried to introduce sort of higher level skincare. It was all great. People love Dove as a brand, but Dove couldn't carry a $20 price point. It just wasn't part of the brand. So you sort of also have to think, as you're thinking about pricing relative to value, where you want to peg yourself, because people will have expectations of where the price point will be.
I will add one or two things. Shelly, I love the fact that we're talking about fear, greed, and lust, because when you're appealing to a B2C buyer, right, it is more than just time and money and power. That's more of the business motivators. But I got to add one to you: fear, greed, love, and sex. Those are motivators.
Right. Well, I think Steve, my partner, would put sex under love. It's just another form, right?
Yeah.
And that could be a whole conversation, right? Yes, right.
I'm going to watch commercials now and watch that happen. So I'm just going to add something to this. You know, I quoted Seth Godin earlier because he talks about letting your freak flag fly. And what he really means is get out of the middle ground. Don't try to be like everybody else, especially in startup. Okay, because you don't have the money for the advertising, for the branding, right? So it has to be different in what you say and how you act. And that's where you want to get to the edges. You guys remember the bell curve, the normal curve, right? 80% of the population is here in the middle. I want you to be an outlier, because an outlier is memorable. Now, it's the very same thing with the people you're talking about. Most people don't want to pay a premium for something uncomfortable buying. Quit selling to the middle. Okay, you need to find the outliers who want to be in the club. The vast majority, quit trying to sell a $75 American Express card to people with the average median income, right? The people you're looking for are at the end of that normal curve who have the super high incomes. Now, this may not be about income for you, right? What's driving people? What do they want to avoid? What's the benefit they're trying to gain? Vast majority of people know, but the outliers who are willing to pay for the service, they do it to gain what? Use your Swift benefits, or to avoid what? And all of your branding and marketing messages and blogging and everything you're doing needs to be about that, the outliers. When it comes to the sales conversation, my suggestion is twofold. One is qualify early. Okay, don't waste 30 minutes on a sales call with somebody who's never going to fork over the change because they're perfectly comfortable. Okay, find out somehow with 1 or 2 questions early on if they're worth your time. And if they're not, get off that call so you have time for the next one. The second one I have is an actual question you can ask. Okay, you want to find out the gap, smiley face, right? Sad face. So we ask them about their current state. What are you using now? On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your satisfaction with that? Human nature will very seldom deliver a 10. If they do deliver a 10, end the call. Super happy for you. May you live happily ever after. Okay. If you get anything below a 10, that's when you say, oh, well, that's interesting. You don't go straight to what would make it a 10. You build trust instead. And you say, well, what do you love about it? That's a great high score. Now they're trusting you. They've told you why they love it. And here comes the money question. I do notice that you didn't give it 10 out of 10. What's the one thing you would change? And there's your opportunity to sell them your product or service. Does that make sense? Let's find out how important that last point is to them. And if you can make it better, if they're willing to pay for it.
Thank you so much, Lauren. I just realized I was speaking on mute, but I think with that, we almost, we're at the top of the hour and we are coming to the end of the session. So I would just like to thank both of you once again, Shelly and Lauren. And just maybe, if you could take 1 quick minute, if Shelly or Lauren wants to share any closing remarks or a closing comment, you can do that now. And I will close the session with some housekeeping notes. Shelly, do you like to say anything?
Sure. No, I just, first of all, I think your questions were wonderful, thought-provoking, and yet very practical. But I would just say that, I sort of began where I started is if you can just literally sit down and write down what you want your brand to be, what you believe it should be, and then let that drive everything else you do, everything. From the space you occupy, to the people you hire, to the package insert, to the way you answer the phone. There will be consistency, cohesion, and to me, that is the path to success. And I wish all of you great success. I can't imagine that won't be true. And let me say, I just look forward to hearing about it.
So I have to echo that. Please find me on LinkedIn and connect so I can follow you and watch you and see how you go and how you grow. Congratulations. You've done the hardest part. You've started this business and you are already in a very elite group. Welcome. I'm really happy to have you with me. If I can be of further service, message me on LinkedIn. It's been a ton of fun. The words I will leave you with are don't be afraid to talk to people, right? Selling is helping. Be yourself. Show your passion, connect with people, your sales will go up.
And Lauren, I would buy anything from you.
Perfect closing statement. And with that, ladies, thank you so much for joining us. And we are super glad that you found this session useful. And we are seeing how much you loved Shelly and Lauren in the chat. But don't forget, your assignments are due on September 18th. Get to it right after this. And we would love to see your submitted assignments. And Shelly, Lauren, thanks once again for spending this 1.5 hours with us. Thank you so much for volunteering your time and supporting USAWEC.